This single image Camtasia AI project is acceptable out of the box. However, it could be greatly improved with changes to the default cursor and with some emphasis on mouse clicks where appropriate. Accordingly, it would really be helpful if Camtasia AI allowed for specifying the type and look of the cursor before a project is created. After doing almost 100 AI projects so far, I've determined that the standard black mouse pointer looks a lot better if you change it to a Windows hand pointer. But to do that, you have to make the change on each one of the scenes in the project. Like, for instance, in this first scene here, you have to go to cursor, change the type of cursor, like go back to Windows cursor, and then pick the hand. That, to me, looks a lot better than the black arrow. Currently, changing the type of cursor on each scene is very tedious because you cannot do it on multiple selected clips. Here, I've edited all the images to change the cursor to a hand cursor, and if you scrub now, I think the hand cursor provides a much better presentation. Another cursor-related issue is the cursor motion. Usually the cursor is stationary over all these images. However, every once in a while it would be appropriate for the cursor to track what's being discussed. I'm going to play through this, and you'll see what I mean.
The table columns include quantity, measure ID, ingredient name, total calories, fat grams, carbohydrate grams, and...
Okay, it would be much better, in my opinion, if I could easily have the cursor hand point to the appropriate column being discussed. Now, I can do that by editing the cursor path, but there's great difficulty in doing that. If you go to cursor and click on edit cursor path, you only get this single point here, which makes it pretty much impossible to reposition the cursor as you'd like. So what you have to do is restore the path, then edit again before you get a normal looking cursor path tool. And now you can position it. I'll change the line type here. Now you can play and position the cursor as it gets to each quantity in the narration. Here I'll play across that same scene after I've edited the cursor path to make more sense to match with the narration.
The table columns include quantity, measure ID, ingredient name, total calories, fat grams, carbohydrate grams, and protein grams.
Another thing that can make a big difference is cursor click effects. Camtasia AI sometimes add those, but I can't figure out how they get added or why they get added where they do. So I've come up with a way of adding my own simulated cursor clips using a library asset. The one I've chosen that works best is a burst effect. And I use these cursor effects to emphasize words or points on the display here being addressed by the narration. Here I'll play across that same scene after adding the burst cursor effects from the library.
The table columns include quantity, measure ID, ingredient name, total calories, fat grams, carbohydrate grams, and protein grams.
In my opinion, editing the cursor path accordingly and adding the click effects greatly improves the presentation that Camtasia AI creates. It would be really helpful if the editing of the cursor path was easier than currently exists. I think the way it is now is kind of buggy. And adding cursor clicks somehow, without having to edit all this in Camtasia, would save a lot of time.